Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show that takes loads of complex info, boils it down, and basically gives you the key takeaways so you can get informed fast. Today, we're plunging into something that, well, probably keeps a lot of us up at night if we use computers, cyber threats. But we're looking at it from a specific angle. We're asking, how do organizations actually handle the public mess, the fallout after a cyber attack hits? Yeah, this isn't just about firewalls and tech defenses. It's really about that scramble, the very public scramble that follows a breach. The crisis communication, the PR challenge, it can honestly make or break a company. We've gone through a whole stack of sources for this one, looking at big case studies, some critical legal stuff, PR best practices, and even research into crisis leadership. So our mission today, pull out the most important bits, help you understand not just what went down in these crises, but why the way companies communicated mattered so much. It's kind of a shortcut to understanding this really crucial modern reality.
Absolutely. And the core message, it comes through loud and clear in pretty much all of the sources. For businesses now, it's not if a cyber incident happens. It's really just when. The whole game has changed.
That's a really sobering thought, isn't it? Cyber attacks aren't some, abstract risk anymore. They are just a harsh reality for almost every single business out there. And our dependence on tech, for everything, it just makes us more vulnerable, right?
Exactly. Sources like the World Economic Forum, NISA, that's the EU cybersecurity agency, they're pointing out that these tech risks, things like misinformation, cyber insecurity, they're actually among the biggest global risks we face, short-term and long-term. And it's not always just about stealing money either. The reasons behind these attacks, they're all over the place. Sure, financial gain is huge, but you also see political motives, social causes, ideology. Think about those hacktivist groups like Anonymous. Remember when they went after payment services because of WikiLeaks back in 2010?
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Well, they caused a lot of disruption, and it was all about making a statement, getting attention for their cause.
So, okay, whether it's about cash or politics or making a point, this whole messy landscape of threats, it ultimately touches all of us, our data, our money, just how we live online. Okay, let's unpack this then. So an incident hits, ransomware maybe, or a big data leak. What's the absolute first thing, the most urgent pressure on that company beyond, trying to stop the bleeding technically?
Well, the first hurdle is almost always legal and regulatory. You got to figure out who you need to tell and when. For public companies here in the U.S., there's a new-ish rule now. You have to disclose material cyber breaches within just 4 days.
4 days, wow.
4 days of deciding it is material, that is.
Okay, 4 days. That sounds incredibly fast. Just imagine the chaos inside the company when that timer starts. But what does material actually mean here? How do they even figure that out so fast?
Yeah, material, that's the key word.
Especially if they're still, fighting the actual attacks. It's like walking a tightrope.
It really is. You've nailed the core tension there. So material basically means the company thinks the breach is significant enough that investors should know, or maybe it could hit their bottom line. But figuring that out can take time. And that process determining materiality, well, that can sometimes cause a delay. Some sources even call it a potential loophole because the 4-day clock only starts after they make that call.
Ah, I see. So the determination itself isn't instantaneous.
Not at all. It's a really complex assessment, usually under immense pressure, while they're still trying to figure out how bad the damage actually is. And then they have to craft a statement. And just for comparison, look at the EU. Their GDPR rule. It's even tougher. 72 hours.
72 hours?
Yeah, that's been around since 2018. And it's led to, well, over €1 billion in fines so far. So this pressure for quick disclosure is definitely a global thing.
Right. And it matters to us, to you listening, because that quick, honest disclosure, that's what gives people affected a chance to protect themselves, right? Change passwords, watch their credit reports. And for the company, it's just fundamental for keeping any kind of public trust. If your data's involved, you want to know. Now, okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. You've got these crazy tight deadlines. The stakes are sky high. How do companies actually pull off effective communication in the middle of that storm? We've all seen some epic fails, haven't we?
Oh, absolutely. The case studies are pretty revealing. You look at companies like Equifax, Yahoo.
Yeah.
They got hammered. Not just for the breach itself, but for how slow they were to tell people and how poorly they communicated.
Yeah, I remember the Equifax situation especially. It felt like ages.
Right. Just made everything worse. Turned a disaster into a total reputation meltdown. But then you look at others. Maybe Target, Sony, Marriott, Capital One. They handled things differently. They showed that being quick, transparent, and even empathetic and having a coordinated PR plan actually works.
Right.
Sony, for instance, they offered compensation, beefed up security.
Yeah.
Capital One gave fast, detailed updates, offered support proactively. They weren't perfect, nobody is, but they leaned into being open.
Those examples definitely paint a picture. But it's one thing to say, be transparent. It sounds simple. But when you're in the thick of it, lawyers breathing down your neck, financials on the line, how do you actually do that? How do companies force themselves to own up to it when maybe the instinct is just to minimize, What are the absolute must-dos in that first critical message?
Well, the surprising thing, maybe, that comes out of looking at successful recoveries is that taking responsibility quickly, even if it's only partial responsibility, often works wonders. It seems to sort of disarm the public anger. And maybe counterintuitively, it can actually strengthen trust over the long run. Yeah, it signals you're in control, you're accountable. Trying to shift blame, pointing fingers, almost always backfires, makes the company look evasive, untrustworthy. So yeah, key things. Acknowledge how vulnerable people feel when their data is exposed. Offer real help, like free credit monitoring. That's almost standard practice now. And, one source made a great point. Silence is not golden. You have to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
But you also shouldn't just flood people with constant updates if there's nothing new to say. Find the balance. Use clear language. Ditch the jargon. Keep the message consistent no matter who's speaking for the company. And, critically, don't forget your own employees. Keep them in the loop first.
That's such a good point about employees, because if your own team is confused or feels left out, how can they possibly project confidence or empathy to customers, right?
Exactly.
It's like that internal piece has to be solid before you can even think about the external message. Okay, so beyond what to say, how do you physically get the message out? Especially if, say, your email systems are down because of the attack.
That's a massive operational challenge, and it really underlines why you need backup plans, redundant channels. You need your direct methods ready email if it works, but also maybe surface mail, even phone banks for certain situations, and then the indirect stuff. Social media, obviously. Setting up a dedicated crisis website is common now. You can put FAQs there, hotline numbers, and working with traditional media outlets too.
So you need plan A, B, and C for communications.
Pretty much. Because you just can't assume your primary channels will be working when you need them most.
It really sounds like managing the communication side isn't just reacting after a breach. It feels like it needs to be part of a bigger, ongoing PR strategy, more than just damage control.
That's exactly right. A solid crisis communication plan, that's actually the bedrock of a good incident response overall. It means having that cross-functional team ready before anything happens. PR, legal, IT security, top executives all working together. And crucially, testing the plan regularly, running drills, tabletop exercises. That's how you find the gaps, smooth things out, and make sure everyone knows their role. It leads to faster recovery, better messaging when it counts.
And what about dealing with the media? And maybe even harder, how do you actually rebuild trust, maintain it after something this significant shakes customer confidence? Because that perception issue seems huge.
Yeah, it's vital. It usually starts with having designated spokespeople who are properly media trained. People who can talk about complex tech stuff, but in a way everyone understands. For the long haul, rebuilding trust. It's about consistent updates. Showing people what you're doing to improve security, being transparent about the lessons you learned. Research actually shows this helps keep customers from leaving. But the real foundation of trust, that actually gets built before any incident happens through regular communication about security in general. Educating customers, showing your commitment proactively. If you've already built that credibility, it helps immensely when a crisis does hit. People are more likely to give you the benefit of the doubt.
Okay, so it's like you're making deposits in the trust bank all along, not just trying to make a massive withdrawal when things go wrong. That makes sense. This continuous effort, showing you're serious about security, that's really key for you, the listener, in judging how reliable an organization truly is. Which brings up a really important question. Who's actually in charge during all this chaos? Who steers the ship? And what kind of skills does that person or those people absolutely need?
Yeah, this is where we talk about crisis leadership, which is distinct from just crisis management. You need real leadership, and it's had to come from the very top. Leaders who can handle deep uncertainty, make tough calls under fire, and, importantly, communicate with empathy. And what's interesting now is CEOs are increasingly turning to their CIOs, their chief information officers, and CISOs, the chief information security officers. They're expecting them to step up and be visible leaders, not just the tech guardians, to be spokespeople for trust.
That's a shift. So what specific skills are we talking about then? It sounds like it goes way beyond just knowing the tech or even just being a good manager.
It really does. We're talking about things like strategic thinking under pressure. Obviously, effective communication is huge. Decisiveness, the ability to foster resilience throughout the whole organization, and just fundamental integrity. Norsk Hydro, the aluminum company, their response to that massive ransomware attack a few years back is often cited as a great example.
What did they do?
Their leadership chose radical transparency right from the beginning. Even when they didn't have all the answers, they shared what was happening, the operational struggles, everything. It turned what could have been a corporate disaster into this story of resilience. That's real leadership, not just ticking boxes on a crisis plan.
Wow. So it's absolutely not just an IT issue then. It's really an organization-wide leadership challenge. Needs everyone involved from the board down.
Precisely. It requires collaboration across all levels. And it really requires a mindset shift, seeing cybersecurity not just as a cost, something you have to spend money on, but as something strategic, something that enables the business, protects the brand. When security leaders talk to the board, they should be focusing on outcomes. How does strong security actually protect revenue? How does it enhance the brand promise? It's about demonstrating value, not just reporting vulnerabilities.
Okay, so given all these challenges, all the complexity, the word that keeps jumping out is preparation. It seems absolutely paramount. How can organizations really build up that resilience before the risk happens?
Preparation is everything. You absolutely need that robust crisis communication capability we talked about, and you need to rehearse it regularly. And you need to systematically find your security weaknesses before an attacker does. That means security audits, checking basic hygiene factors like, are we using strong encryption? Is multi-factor authentication deployed everywhere it should be? This whole proactive approach, it involves understanding your organization's cybersecurity maturity, basically getting a clear, honest assessment of where your defenses and your response readiness actually stand right now. For anyone listening who's involved in this for their organization, figuring out that maturity level is a critical first step, and there are resources out there to help. Places like www.airmaturityassessment.com can provide frameworks and guidance for that kind of assessment.
That makes sense. Assess where you are before you can figure out where you need to go. And what about the financial side? These incidents can be incredibly expensive. How do companies plan for that potential hit?
Yeah, beyond the technical defenses, there's a big financial strategy piece now, which is cyber insurance. A lot of organizations are relying on these policies. And they're also more than just financial coverage for losses. Many policies actually give you access to expert incident response teams.
Oh, like forensics and PR consultants.
Exactly. PR, legal help, technical forensics. Having those experts on call, often as part of the insurance package, can make a huge difference in managing the crisis and controlling the costs. It's really become a standard part of a good incident response plan. Understanding what coverage you might need, what it might cost, that's crucial planning. And again, there are tools available to help estimate that, like those you might find over at www.cyberinsuranceCalc.com. It helps organizations think through that financial preparedness piece.
Right. So for you listening, whether you're just a customer trusting a company with your data or you're working inside an organization, knowing that companies are taking these kinds of proactive steps, from doing those rigorous maturity assessments to having that safety net of cyber insurance, that can really tell you a lot about how seriously they take protecting you and how prepared they might be. It's a big factor in deciding where you place your trust.
Okay, so we've really dug deep today into this whole world of cybersecurity crisis communication. We've seen how, the question really has shifted from if to when for pretty much everyone. And we've seen just how critical clear communication and maybe more importantly, strong, empathetic leadership really are in shaping how things turn out after a breach.
Absolutely. And the lessons here from all these breaches, they're not just for the C-suite or the IT department. They give all of us, valuable insights into how organizations operate, how reliable they are, how accountable they are. This helps us all be more informed consumers and citizens. So we'll leave you with this thought to chew on. In this digital world where trust is just so fundamental, what would you consider the ultimate sign, the ultimate measure that an organization is truly committed to protecting your data? Beyond just saying they're trying to prevent breaches, something to think about until our next deep dive.